We all want respect as we grow and advance in our lives post-military. But the same way we gain that respect in the uniform isn't the same way we gain it in the marketplace, within our families, and relationships. What if you could become an alpha inside your desired field without forcing it? Stay tuned as Churchill of Alpha Coffee dives into his warrior ethos and what you need to be thinking about as you build your competency in your next mission in life.
Learning those things and learning how to adapt them and take that military speak out and use business concepts, that was huge. And that's where I started to really see success.
Today's show is brought to you by Original Grain. Do you have a great story, ambitious vet? Why not wear something that has one too? At Original Grain, they create handcrafted watches which feature sustainable, reclaimed, and repurposed materials that tell a story. It's more than a watch. It's a conversion piece. Each timepiece is one of a kind, just like you. Find your perfect match now by visiting originalgrain.com. And I encourage you, ambitious vet, if you find anything that you like there, make sure to enter in coupon code AMVNetwork10 to apply your 10% military discount. Welcome to the Ambitious Vet Podcast. My name is Chris. I'm a Marine Corps combat veteran turned social entrepreneur. Here I dive into the trenches with today's most ambitious, goal-oriented, and growth-minded military veterans on the planet to empower you with the golden grenades needed to break through new levels of satisfaction, fulfillment, and success after stability is no longer a challenge to overcome. Buckle up, ambitious vet. It's time to break through to new levels of success in your life.
It's time to get into the trenches, dig into your purpose, and fire up your life's fulfillment. The Ambitious Vet Podcast starts now.
What's going on, ambitious vet? We're right back inside the trenches today with Churchill. Carl joined the U.S. Army as a 17-year-old private and retired after 21 years as a lieutenant colonel. He spent 9 years on active duty and another 12 in the Army Reserves. Carl is a combat veteran who served with many units, including Special Operations Command Europe, 1st Armored Division, 3rd Infantry Division, and 9th Infantry Division. During his career, he deployed numerous times to Central America, the Balkans, Asia, North Africa, and the Middle East. He also, ambitious vet, earned the Bronze Star in Desert Storm. Carl is also an entrepreneur, an experienced businessman. Him and his wife, Lori, are the co-founders of Alpha Coffee. They've been together for well over 33 years now, which is super inspiring. And they've been weathering through multiple deployments, over a dozen household moves, and raising 2 kids who they're extremely proud of and who both work at Alpha. Alpha Coffee is a highly successful online wholesale and retail coffee shop business based in Cottonwood Heights, Utah. The company regularly donates coffee to troops deployed overseas and has sent over 18,000 bags of coffee to date. They've also donated over $25,000 to military charities. They also strongly support the local community and are active in many community organizations. Carl, man, welcome to the show.
Thanks, brother. I'm glad to be here.
Man, what you guys are doing is extremely inspiring. And I just got to tell you, man, from our pre-interview that we did a couple months back, I'm just excited to hear, man, how you keep that mind strong, how do you continue to improve, and how you've been able to do the amazing work that you've done with Alpha Coffee, man. It's just awesome. So welcome.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk to you, share some stuff.
Yeah, awesome. So brother, walk us through one thing that we dove into our first conversation was the Stoicism, right? Even behind you have Theodore Roosevelt quote behind you and stuff like that. What had you fall in love with Stoicism? I guess we'll start with that because that's an interesting fact.
Yeah, no, I've been a fan of the Stoics for a long time. I discovered them in the military. Some of my brothers in arms recommended books for me to read, and I started reading Marcus Aurelius and some of that stuff. I'm a huge lifelong reader and learner, and it's something that I encourage others to do. Stoicism is a way to acknowledge the transient nature of life, but also dive in and fight every day for success and growth and all that kind of stuff. So, this is our, we call it the Roosevelt room because Teddy Roosevelt was a badass. And we really, man in the arena is the quote behind me. It's super motivating for me because people like to sit there and second guess and talk shit about people. But if you're the man in the arena with the dust and the blood and the sweat, then you don't care what those other people are saying about you. You're just doing what you need to do. So, Stoicism is super cool.
Yeah, I love it because I often say that, hey, I'm a Stoic. I don't take myself too serious, but I take life very serious. That's how I justify my Stoicism.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what I mean? So I want to go ahead and dive into, just your journey, right? You were active duty for 9 years, correct?
Right. Yeah.
And then you got out. How was that first few years out? I know you spent another, over a decade in the reservists and stuff like that, but kind of walk us through those first few years of one foot in, one foot out, I guess you could say, outside of the military. What was those first few years looking like?
Yeah, totally. So first of all, I grew up as an Army brat. My dad and stepdad were in the military, Vietnam Rangers. Everybody I grew up around, whether it was my judo instructor was like a Green Beret Vietnam vet. Airborne Rangers were my Boy Scout troop leaders and all that. So I grew up around all these warriors who I wanted to like. So when I was 17, I raised my right hand. I couldn't wait to get in. That was back in 1979. So just a few years ago. And I came into the military, and then, I had some squared away NCOs that really taught me a lot about leadership, about leading by example. And they encouraged me to apply for a scholarship. So I got a scholarship, green to gold, ended up going through ROTC, commissioned, and ended up spending 9 years before I found myself where probably a lot of your listeners found themselves, like, love the military, love my service, but was getting burnt out. I was burnt out on deployments. I was burnt out on the big green machine, on seeing peers that weren't putting in the effort, but were moving along and getting promoted and, all of that stuff. So I took a year, I resigned my commission, got out, took a year off, long hair, don't care, grew it out, was
let
like,
it go.
It was like, I'm getting away from the military. Luckily, I was hired into a sales organization that was all veterans. But still, I was on my own. I was doing high-end medical sales, having a lot of success, making a ton of money. But I just missed that sense of mission. And I felt a little bit lost. I was missing the military. So that was after a year, I got a call from Special Operations Command, went back and did like a little short tour, and then decided I don't want to go completely back on active duty, but I want to keep one foot in with the reserves. So that's how I ended up where I was. But, to your point, that transition is difficult. You go from this sense of mission, this sense of purpose, this esprit de corps, knowing what the terrain is like, knowing what the language is in the military, to being in a whole different situation where you're dealing with civilians. Your mission is maybe to make money, instead of save the world for democracy or whatever. And so that was hard. That was a transition for sure. And I think reaching out to buddies who were still in the military, friends, talking to my wife a lot, not trying to internalize it and just power through it, but talk to people. That helped me a lot. And then slowly I started to understand that I could leverage all that military knowledge and experience into the civilian sector. And figuring out how to translate that and civilianize those skills, that was probably what really made it easier, because then you start to find that success and gain back the respect of the people you work with. And that was, I think, key to success on the civilian side.
Yeah, that's awesome. It sounds like that was a key milestone of yours, is figuring out how to keep one foot in, one foot out of the military, just culture. Because let's face it, Ambitious Vet, we love our brothers, we love our sisters around us, because no one beats that palpable trust, man, that's in the military.
Yeah.
To this day, man, I've been out of the Marine Corps for close to 10 years now, and it's still like, that's why I came back to the veteran community, because it's just that bond, man, just automatic trust. But I want to unpackage that milestone, right? Because that's still a problem today for even corporations looking to hire veterans, and even ambitious vets that are leaving their first career within 12 months or 24 months, is like the military jargon, military experience translation, and stuff like that. So what was that aha moment for you that had you be like, oh, okay, I did some badass shit in the military, serving these different commands, did these different tasks? What was your aha moment to really be like, okay, this is my economical value that I can provide to the marketplace? What was that aha moment?
Yeah, that was, it was when I suddenly realized that I didn't need to be a hammer. It's like in the military, it's like, let's just make this shit happen, and you can be very blunt with people. You can tell them when they're screwing up. You can tell them what you need from them. And I started to realize that I had to translate that to the civilian sector. I had to adapt to a new reality. I had to explore the terrain around me and realize that I was in a different situation. And I think that, it's like, know your audience. I started to know what my environment was, and I started to really, I've never been sort of a braggart or somebody who thumps their chest and says, this is who I am or whatever. But one of the things that I started to notice is a couple of my bosses said to me, like, the thing I like about you, Carl, is that you just make it happen. You have this quiet competence about you where you're not looking for recognition. You're not like, yeah, I was in the military and I was, those guys that you meet that it's like within 5 minutes, they're a vet, and like every combat tour they ever made. And it was, I learned to kind of really dial that. I mean, I never had it like out front, but I dialed it way back where it got to the point where people were like, yeah, I heard you were a vet, but you never talk about it. And I say, well, I don't need to talk about it because that's part of who I am, but it's not who I am now. Now I'm this person who's a business person, who's an entrepreneur, who's doing this. And I'm proud of being a veteran, but I don't walk around thumping my chest about it and bellowing, I'm a veteran, give me my 10% discount, kind of thing. So, I think it was an aha moment, like quiet competence. That's what really wins the day. And so I started to try not to be a hammer unless I needed to. And I started adapting some of the military tools that I had learned, like building allies, like, and using specialists. Like when you're in the military, if you're an infantry platoon leader, you're not going to necessarily be the guy calling in aircraft. You're not going to necessarily be the guy, calling in artillery fire. You have people that are specialists. Like if you're in a special forces team, you have people that specialize in different things. You have your person who's your medical person, your heavy, your explosives, all those things. So I started realizing that, build this team, find that IT guy or gal that can really help you be successful. Find that person in finance. You don't have to be the expert at everything. Find those competent allies that you can bring onto your team, even if they're temporary. If you're task organized, quote unquote, for a project, find those good people. And then just adapting, some of the things I used in the military, we use those in Alpha today. The concept of an AAR, we use that literally every day here. Like what went well, what could we improve on? Do we need to change anything? That after action review. And we adapted it a little bit. So, the concept of reinforcing success rather than beating your head against a strong point. It's like, hey, we're attacking this location. We're having success here. We want to break through, reinforce that rather than reinforcing where you're having the most resistance. Those kinds of things where it's like, in the civilian sector, they call it a pivot or whatever. It's just saying, hey, we're having success here. Let's reinforce that. We're not having success here. It's what MacArthur did when he island hopped in the Pacific in World War II. If there was an island that was a strong point, he bypassed it. That's adapting that to the business community. Those kinds of military lessons, people think you're a genius when you're just like saying, hey, I'm just reinforcing success. Learning those things and learning how to adapt them and take that military speak out and use business concepts, that was huge. And that's where I started to really see success.
That's awesome. And you really articulated just your background and how you developed that human capital to build your economical value. So thank you for that. Man, you sound like a chess player, man. Like you know how to play your pawns well, man.
Yeah,
you learn how to do that.
You've always got to understand that I play the long game. It's like slow and steady wins the race, it's something that you and I talked about before was this whole warrior ethos, thing. That's just who I am. That's what I believe. It's what I've seen work both in the military and outside the military, both in life and in business. So that's just who I am, man. I'm authentic. That's, be who you are, right?
It takes less energy, to be honest, man. It really does. So we'll dive into that warrior ethos here in just a second. But just to kind of summarize that, ambitious vet, it sounds like what Carl did a damn good job of when he got out of his military service was he started he allowed his soft skills to speak for him, right? He just plugged into the systems that were provided out there and just allowed his soft skills that he naturally held to produce success. He also leveraged the team building skills that we have, no matter what military branch you're in, learned how to not demand in communication, but rather how do we work together? What are the different resources that different, other roles can play? And also, I really love the know your environment, really seeking to understand that. And that really shows just the emotional intelligence component of that, man, around how to do that. Because I'm sure that was not an overnight thing of learning to know your environment.
Yeah, it takes a while.
Yeah.
That's a simple military concept, right? You go into your area of operations, and whether that's desert, jungle, mountain, whatever it is, that's the terrain, and there's the human terrain as well, and the business terrain. You gotta figure that out, and so that you can be successful within that environment.
Yeah. So let's talk about that, right? Because you got into this great sales role, stayed in the reservist, and then you kind of started morphing into the coffee industry, right? Which is one of the largest industries in the world, right? So walk us through what kind of led you up to Alpha Coffee, if you don't mind.
Yeah, so it's an interesting evolution. What happened was I started to realize in the business world what I liked most. So first of all, I realized, hey, I got out of the military. I want to do something that I enjoy doing. I don't want it. I tell my son, I should say our son and our daughter, like, don't trade money for happiness. A lot of times you get out of the military, it's like, I want to make money. I want to, I'm tired of, working my butt off. If I work this hard, I want to make money. And there's nothing wrong with that, but don't trade money for happiness. And so I started to realize that what I really enjoyed in the civilian sector was the smaller businesses, the entrepreneurial businesses, because startups had that feel of a small team. When I was in the military, once I made major, it was like you're on staff, you're doing this stuff, you're not leading troops. And I actually got picked up for full bird colonel, and I was trying to decide whether I was going to stay in the reserves longer and do that. When they started talking to me like, now you got to go to the war college and you're going to do this and you're going to do that. And I thought, I will never lead troops again. And that's what I loved the most, whether I was a squad leader as an enlisted guy or a platoon leader, company commander. That's what I loved, was leading other troops. And so I found in those startup companies that felt like a small team with a mission, where everybody was buying in and we were all trying to achieve success. And so that's where I started gravitating towards. And I was in the telecom and tech sector. We had a business that I was partners in. We had a $10 million offer for it. I owned 10% of the business. My partner owned 56%. He felt like we could make more money if we waited a year, and then the recession hit. So he turned down the offer, recession hit. Long story short, we were out of business. We were, basically bankrupt, and we were starting all over. So Lori and I sat down in late 2009, early 2010, and we said, what are we going to do next? Where do we go from here? We felt like we were in a financial ambush, and I said, hey, we've got some money in savings, and we can make it a little while, but if we don't do something, nobody's coming to help us. This is a recession. I was interviewing for jobs. They were, I get 2 or 3 interviews in and they'd say, sorry, we have a hiring freeze. And so long story short, we decided we got to get off the X. We got to charge this ambush, put that weapon on rock and roll and charge into the teeth of the ambush, because that's our last chance. So by the way, I don't recommend this to anybody, but we cashed in 401ks, and, after taxes and penalties, there wasn't that much left, but there was enough to get us through a couple of years. And we started Alpha. We were literally drinking coffee that my brother-in-law, Josh, had roasted. And we're like, man, this is such good coffee. My wife's from the Seattle area, Seattle, Tacoma.
Nice.
I met her when I was stationed up there. And so we were drinking that coffee, and I said, I've got this crazy idea. Why don't we do an online coffee company? Let's start out. Let's sell online. We'll operate out of the basement, low overhead. We can use our kids as slave labor, so our labor costs are low. Let's get this going. And so September 11th, 2010, we started the company. And then over the years, we morphed into not just an online company, but wholesale. And then we did a brick and mortar to get out of the basement. Now we've got a couple of shops open. We have 2 more opening up. We did 1.2 million in sales last year. We've
Wow.
already bypassed that this year in during COVID, where we took a serious body blow early in the year, but just kept fighting through that. And that's where we are, and it's all about that, that warrior ethos and really never quitting and keep pushing.
Yeah, thanks for painting that picture, brother, because that really tells the gritty story. And I think a lot of ambitious vets, including myself, can relate to wanting something so badly that you do wind up sacrificing some immediate resources that you thought were important when you first got out. But they just don't, they just don't, they're not as important as you learn and navigate through the civilian sector. So thanks for just being vulnerable and sharing that story first and foremost. And like you said, 2 brick and mortar locations in Utah, 18 plus different flavors. Am I right around that?
Yeah. So those are different blends that we have. Yeah. So
that's huge. I saw that Ambitious Vet, you can go and subscribe to and get, monthly subscription of a pound bag. There. I know that our podcast director, Michael Parker, loves Charlie Don't Surf. So Ambitious Vet, I would say go and try that one to start, or you can pay as you go. And as you get more and more addicted, subscribe, whatever you want to do. But they also have gear, even cocoa and creamer. They have the works, man. You've done a damn good job as far as evolving this, which I want to kind of tee this back over to you, because you have a unique philosophy on how to create a fulfilling and successful life after the military. You're an advocate of constant, never-ending improvement, and how do you keep your mind strong and also always be, improving, like I said. So walk us through this warrior ethos that you've been teasing us with this whole episode, and break it down.
So that's. I apologize. I'm always talking to people about it, whether it's our employees or whether it's friends. To me, our mission statement at Alpha, first of all, is it's 4 bullet points. And I got that from the military. You got to keep it simple, and people need to be able to know what the mission statement is. And so that's awesome coffee, be a warrior, have fun, and give back. And, we make our employees memorize that, like the first 5 days they're here. And then everything they do, we don't say like, hey, you forgot to empty out that carafe of coffee, which was, had passed its freshness. So we'll brew up coffee, and we'll pour out a whole gallon of coffee if it starts to cool down and lose its freshness, because I'd rather have that customer come up and have a fresh pot of coffee. But we don't say, hey, that's one of our SOPs, our standard operating procedures. And we have checklists, and people write down when it's brewed, and, first line supervisors are checking to see if the coffee's gone out yet or not. But what we do is we tie it back. We say, hey, it's not awesome coffee if it's been more than 2 hours since that's been brewed. And then people go back to the mission statement. It's not awesome coffee if we don't greet a person when they come in, because that's part of their experience. So that awesome coffee, be a warrior. That be a warrior part of it is that warrior ethos. There's a whole bunch of components to it. And when we talk about it, people bring up other things, but I'll just kind of give you some of the big ones. One of the alphaisms that we use is we win as a team. That's something from the military. You don't win as an individual, you win as a team. So that team-based approach to everything, and having the team with different skill sets, different life experiences, different work experiences. When we're hiring people, we're not looking for people that have coffee experience. We're looking for people that demonstrate grit, that have a really positive outlook on life. We actually count the number of times that people smile during their interviews to see, that's something that we learned from In-N-Out Burger. They do the same thing. Like, how many times did they smile during their interview? So, that we win as a team and people supporting each other is a big part of the Warrior Ethos. Serving others, having that sense of service, people are always, thank you for your service. And, it's like, thank you for your support. Like, it's become this standard thing. I always just say, hey, it was an honor to serve. And we're still trying to serve, with our coffee shop now. We're trying to give back. We're trying to, not just be out there making money. So that sense of serving others, I think is really important. We talk here about discipline and about forming habits. That's part of the Warrior Ethos as well. So, that sense of, I'm the owner of the shop. Lori and I are the owners of the shop, but we take out the garbage. We clean the bathrooms. We lead by example. And we've had people tell us, like, I worked at this other place and I only saw the owners when they would come in, count the money and walk out the door. And you guys are, you show up regularly at 5:45 in the morning, to help us dial in the espresso machines and open on the weekends, or, you guys come in and you're, shoulder to shoulder with us working the line. And, that's something I think that's the Warrior Ethos. I mean, when you read about the Spartans, King Leonidas in the Gates of Fire, by Stephen Pressfield, by the way, great book. He led from the front. He stood at the front of the line and fought with the rest of the Spartans. He didn't stay in the rear. So, all of that. And then the concept of Kaizen, that's the Japanese word for constant improvement. That was like, for any of you who built a fighting position, it's like constant improvement. Like, if you have 6 hours, you dig it out, you put a grenade sump in it. Then if you have longer, you put out sandbags, you put overhead cover, you do, you constantly improve your fighting position. You're constantly trying to make things better because your survival depends on it. And that's the same thing in business, man. If you sleep, especially nowadays, if you sleep on something, if you think like, hey, I've made it, somebody out there is hungrier and they're ready to take your business away. So you've got to constantly be improving and adapting and thinking about, what comes next? What am I not doing that I should be doing? That's, We Were Soldiers Once and Young by Hal Moore. He talks about that. He's in the middle of this landing zone in Vietnam and they're going to be overrun. And he's got people like calling him on the radios. He's calling in aircraft. He's calling in artillery. He's doing all this stuff. And every once in a while, he just turned all the radios off. And for a couple of minutes, he sat there and thought, what am I not doing that I should be doing right now? What do I need to be doing so that an hour from now, 2 hours from now, we're in a position to survive? So that's that Warrior Ethos, is thinking ahead. Like you said, kind of being a chess player. So, I mean, I could go on and on. I'm so passionate about this. And I think we learn all those tools in the military. You just have to sit down and think through about how do I apply this to the civilian sector, so.
Yeah, I think it's a good guiding post of the culture that you've done a damn good job of building, because just reviewing the website as we were preparing for this interview, I mean, it's a culture that you're walking into. You hear about other coffee shops that have a culture, they have an experience. I mean, the look and feel, Ambitious Vet, when you go to Alpha Coffee's website, it's like, hey, if you want to be an alpha in your new battlefield, you drink their coffee. It's a lifestyle brand from what I take away with it, man.
That's good, because that's what we talk about, alpha culture, and we say things like taste the alpha difference, experience the alpha difference. We had a guy who said, hey, I sent 3 emails into you guys about my order. I hadn't heard anything back. And so I went into our inventory manager and our online sales manager, and I said, hey man, what's going on with this? And he's like, okay, yeah, it was a week ago. He sent an email. He did a follow-up email. I have no idea how I missed it, but I missed it. I said, dude, you're owning it. That's cool. I'm not going to beat you up about it, but we got to learn from this and we got to move forward and we got to do the right thing. So I said, refund his whole order, send him everything that he ordered, and let's move forward. And that's the alpha culture. It's like, do the right thing, be a warrior, So
yeah. No, it's very clear, man. It's very clear. And I love the camoed out like hoodies and stuff like that, man. I might order me one of those, man, because I'm just like, that's yeah, man. It's just, it has you feel the culture. It has you identify with the coffee that you're drinking other than just getting your caffeine high for a couple hours. Right. So I really love the look and feel, man. I definitely identify with it. And I know the ambitious vet that's listening to this, if they go to the website, they're going to love the culture that you've built and where you're going with it. So can you I want to shift gears a little bit, man, because one thing that, I got really inspired about in our pre-interview months back is just your relationship with your wife, man. I'm a new married man. And how are you leveraging the Warrior Ethos to strengthen the relationship with your wife, your, relationships and your everyday life, and just finding that more fulfillment in life, like just practically in everyday life, other than just business?
Yeah, totally. And I give so many props to my wife. She's amazing. I always joke with people and say, I really married up, and I'll say things like, and I mean this, I feel like I'm never going to win the lottery because I used all my luck up meeting my wife. She's awesome. She's so supportive. And really, people tell me all the time, like, we see that in your relationship. We see how you guys are together and supporting each other. But we've also had friends say, we see why that happens because I say I'm lucky, but it's a lot of hard work that goes into it. Part of it is you got to let go of ego. It's so often in relationships, whether it's with a spouse or your kids or coworkers or whatever, you're trying to defend, like why you did something or defend your actions or whatever. And letting go of ego and saying things like, you know what? It wasn't my intention when I responded in this way to make you feel like I was upset with you or angry with you. This is what I hear from vets all the time. Like, my partner, my spouse, my wife, my husband thinks I'm mad at them. And I'm just like responding, it's like,
yeah.
I mean, sometimes we're like, as veterans, like, I talk really loud because I spent half my life talking to groups of 20 to 40 people. So, and it's like, sometimes my wife's like, tone it down. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I got it. But, getting rid of ego and saying, you know what, I'm not going to try and defend or try and say, hey, it's okay that I did this because it wasn't my intention. And just saying, hey, I'm going to look at it from their perspective. And if their feeling is that I'm acting in this way, then I need to understand that regardless of what my intention is, they're feeling that way. So I need to modify my behavior. And when you do that, when you validate that they're like, that their reality is real, instead of saying, yeah, but I didn't mean it that way, or blah, blah, blah. All of a sudden, it's like there's no tug of war. You just both drop the rope, Mm-hmm. So it's like, and I found that especially with teenagers. Our kids now are 26 and 23. And when they were younger, when they were teenagers, you're like tug of war, back and forth. These are our values. This is what I want to do, blah, blah, blah. And when you just drop the rope and say, cool, like dye your hair black, that's cool. at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. That's something superficial. So they dye their hair black, and a week later they're like, okay, that was stupid. Like, now I'm gonna, it's like whatever it is. And I'm not saying that you give up on values or, integrity or those really core issues about who you are as a family. But there's so many little things that you can end up fighting over. And when you just drop the rope and validate the other person's feelings, if you're like, hey, I get it. Like, all your friends are dyeing their hair black, go for it. Like, it's not the end of the world, So that's awesome. Some of what's really helped us as a couple, and how we've made it this far through starting a business, all the moves, raising 2 kids. It's not easy, but props to Lori. She put up with a lot from me, but we also work at it, and we continue to work at it. Even after 33 years together, every day we're communicating.
Yeah. No, I mean, all that is great wisdom. I think for any millennial that listens to this, because the predominant audience that you're speaking to is millennials that are just figuring out how to transition that warrior, like prideful way of doing life in the military, to actually let go of that and be a warrior in another way inside of their romantic relationship, their relationships with their kids, their families, stuff like that. I think that's very impactful. And I think it goes also back to just knowing your environment, right? Just knowing the dynamic, the landscape, the personality type that you're speaking to, and not trying to control them, but just say, what's their point of view? Let's like hear them out. It's nothing personal, right?
Yeah,
so
totally.
That's yeah, man, that's just great wisdom. And you guys have a value system in your family, in your household, huh?
Yeah, we do. Absolutely. And we talk about it a lot. And authenticity and integrity and honesty are right there at the top of the list. And I think especially nowadays, where with social media and all the curating of how you present yourself online and all that, authenticity is so important. And and just that integrity and honesty and communication, those are the big things.
Yeah, that's great. It's a great value system to follow and have your family lean on whenever times get challenging. That's great. So, Ambitious Vet, we're going to take a quick commercial break to thank our sponsors. Right when we get back with Carl Churchill, we're going to dive into his 3 golden grenades that are going to keep you unstuck in advancing your life, career, and business. We'll be right back. Hey, Ambitious Vet, this is your last call. If you're ready to walk away with the tools to turn your instincts into skills and create profitable relevance in the marketplace today, I invite you to become, if you haven't already, a veteran who chooses to invest in yourself by immersing yourself in a 3-day virtual live training event coming up this Friday, actually, October 2nd through the 4th, 2020, which will equip you to champion the toughest issues facing leaders today with the most powerful tool in your arsenal, your rooftop leadership story, which will be led by a retired Green Beret, Lieutenant Colonel Scott Mann himself. Check it out. Enter in code AMBITIOUS to take 10% off your ticket, backed by a full satisfaction guarantee by Scott Mann himself. Go ahead, check out rooftopleadership.com or click the link in the show notes below. All right, Ambitious Vet, we're right back inside the trenches with one of the co-founders of Alpha Coffee, Carl Churchill. And just throughout this whole episode, it's been a lot of just wisdom. I think I narrowed about 10 years off my life into where I'm trying to go in different areas of my life. And I hope you are doing the same. And I hope you're taking as many notes as I am. So, Carl, we have a tradition here on this show, 3 golden grenades. You can summarize what you've already kind of dissected throughout the show, or you can bring us 3 new wisdom bombs that could help empower an ambitious vet that's been out of the military for at least 3 years, found stability, but they're just lacking something in life. What would be the 3 golden grenades that you would provide that ambitious vet?
Well, I think 3 things that have been a core part of what's made me successful in business and in life is the first one is discipline and habit. And I would add to that without being rigid. So if you can, if every day you get up, you make your bed, you've achieved one thing. And that's not something that I came up with. That's something that I try and do every day. I try and, do something physical every day. I try to read on a regular basis or listen to podcasts, that kind of thing. So discipline and habit. And, it's so easy to get distracted these days and to get distracted with social media, with, you can binge a whole season of a show, It's like, be disciplined about it, form those good habits. There are so many times where it's like, hey, you want to watch one more show? And then it's like, no, let's turn it off. Let's go to bed. We'll watch it tomorrow night, kind of deal. So discipline and habit would be the first one. The second one would be find your tribe and make sure it's a positive one. If you read Sebastian Junger, Tribes, great book, talks about how we're sort of built as Homo sapiens to be in these small tribes. Find the people who make you better, the people who resonate with you, the people that are positive and move you forward, and try and spend more time with them. I found that in business, like the people who I really like to be around, I try to spend time with them. And maybe it's just like, hey man, we haven't talked in a while. Let's grab a coffee. Or maybe it's a text every once in a while and it's like, dude, what's up? How are things? It doesn't have to be a big thing because we're all super busy, but there are people when I jump on the phone with them or we get into a DM exchange over a couple of days that I just feel better afterwards, and it just find those people because it's so easy to get sucked into negativity and that sort of thing. So that's the second one is a tribe of positive people who make you better. Then the third golden grenade I would say is continue to challenge yourself, to learn, to grow, and to see new perspectives. I think it was Mark Twain who said, whenever I find myself on the side of the majority, it's time to pause and think, and it's like, I try and do that. I try and, whether it's politics or it's some social, thing, some social movement or whatever, I always try to ask somebody who's, maybe on the other side from what I believe in, or even asking people from quote unquote both sides, like, hey, what's your perspective? And it helps me to see both sides. I try to do that in the news media that I consume. When I'm on Apple News, I'm trying to read both left and right, and I'm trying to get a perspective so that I can understand the whole range of things. I try to read a lot, listen to podcasts, do things that help me to grow and to learn and change myself. And I try to do the same thing physically. It's whether it's like I'm going to run a marathon or a half marathon, or I'm going to do a PR for the rowing machine, or for doing squats or whatever it is. This morning we were working out and we were doing kettlebell swings, and I was like, okay, we're doing 8 rounds of these, and I want to go from 18 in 20 seconds to 22 in 20 seconds, and just constantly challenging yourself. I mean, that's the only way we progress. So those are my 3 golden grenades, brother.
Yeah, that's great. And I love it, man, because it sounds like you're also an independent thinker. You don't allow other people to think for yourself. And
that's critical. That's, you gotta, don't be a sheeple. Like people, it's so funny. Like, I'll give you a quick example. Our daughter was like, she went through this phase when she was a teenager where she wanted to be like goth, because they were the alternative to like, all the cheerleader types in school. And I was like, what's funny is these kids that are goth, they're actually wearing more of a uniform and they're being more followers than they've just chosen an alternative uniform, an alternative, straitjacket that they're going to put on. And so I'm like, be an independent thinker, think through everything and choose what works for you. Be authentic and don't be somebody who follows others.
That's awesome, Carl. Well, brother, where can an ambitious vet that's listening to this find out more about Alpha Coffee and maybe just be your newest subscriber, especially if they're looking to get that Charlie Don't Surf coffee? Where can they find more about you?
Well, so we're both on Amazon Prime and we're at www.alpha.coffee. There's no .com or anything. You can order online. We have a 10% discount if you're a veteran or a first responder or a healthcare worker. It's through GovX. You go on there and you sign up, and we have that GovX during the checkout process that gives you that discount. And if you sign up for a subscription, you get an additional 10% discount stacked on top of that. That's the best way to do it. If you're in Utah, come by and share a cup of coffee with us.
Yeah, that's awesome. And Ambitious Vet, we did a special partnership with Carl and his team. So if you are saying, hey, I can't wait to go try out Alpha Coffee, you can go visit alpha.coffee/ambitious vet. Again, that's alpha.coffee/ambitious vet. The link will also be in the show notes below. So make sure you go and check that out and show some love for a veteran-owned business that's out there, not only collecting money, as Carl would say, but also giving back to the veterans that are deployed and even military organizations that are looking to empower you. So Carl, man, I just want to thank you for joining the show today, man. It's been absolutely amazing. And with that, we'll go ahead and sign off.
Thanks, brother. Appreciate the opportunity.
The Ambitious Vet is available on all popular podcast platforms. Go to vettrainingcoaching.com to subscribe, rate, and share with fellow vets.
Again, today's show is brought to you by Original Grain. If you're out there chasing meaning, why not wear something that has meaning? If that's you, visit originalgrain.com right now. And if you like any of their handcrafted premium watches, make sure to enter in coupon code AMVNetwork10 at checkout to apply your military discount.